Hi, this is Baz from 36db, and today we're showcasing our brand new 36db Melodic Tech Environment. This environment was inspired by the groove-led underground house sounds of Chris Stussy, Josh Baker, Toman and Sosa, alongside the melodic energy of Carlita, Blackchild, Prosper, and Sylvie Loto. This powerful Ableton 12 template and production environment gives you all the tools you need to create your own melodic tech track and combine the instruments and effects with other 36D products or your own tracks. The environment features 4 custom live sets: the Melodic Tech Environment, the Melodic Tech drum tracks, which is the individual drum tracks for all the drums, and also the Melodic Tech kit patterns. This is basically all the patterns that are involved in the whole arrangement of the track, which there are 16 of them. You then have the 36db Acid Haus 3x3. This is our emulation of the 303 that we created on one of our earlier products. This also includes 20 patterns for you to play around with, as well as a bunch of different presets and sounds. It also comes with a box of dirt effects and lastly a few repeats, which will give you other kind of weird, kind of glitched out sounds and stuff that really make it a much more interesting kind of tool to play around with. We then have 9 instruments. These include bass, pluck sounds, synth sounds, pads, peak source sample, which is samples from our Peak Novation Peak instrument. As I mentioned, the Acid Haus. There are also 18 EFX samples, a vocal sample that are all part of the arrangement as well. Each of these are as a normal rack, but you also have the MIDI as well, where if you drag the MIDI into your session onto a new track, it will add all of the parts that were in that full instrument, including the effects racks. We also have the 2 processing channels, the usual drum channel and the mastering channel, which come with presets also. There are 6 effects racks, which are on different instruments within the environment, and then also 5 return effects racks, which are really cool. There's some proper wonky stuff in there. As usual, you'll have 16 drum samples. These are all the samples of a Jupiter 6 sound that we created, which is one of the sounds, as well as the peak sound that I mentioned earlier. There's sound effects and stuff, as well as the drum sounds. There's also an upgraded version of our 36db Shimmer Verb, which we gave away, which is a Max for Live device. This one now has a filter section with updated presets, which is really cool, which is exclusive to this environment. Let's take a closer look at some of the instruments. Let's take a look at the bass. The bass is using the Bass Max for Live device, which is a really cool mono synth, which has quite a few different things that are quite unique about it, with sync and ring mod and stuff. So here's the original sound. We're using Ableton's Corpus effect and some LFO added with Max for Live. There's a comb filter, Redux, reverb, some sidechain effects going on as well as a limiter, which gives it a lot of different flavors. But let me play you what the bass is actually doing. So it's quite a flat, interesting sound. Gets quite gnarly and, you know, lots of harmonics in there, which is kind of what we want to feed into the Corpus effect. So let's go back to our original sound. So when we put the effect on, you'll then get, you know, this filtered, flangey sort of thing going on, which is what the filter's doing, and also the gain on Corpus is being modulated as well. So when you turn it up, you get all of this dirt and all these artifacts that really bring the sound to life. Let's try some of the other presets. As you can see, it gets pretty bonkers, you know. Lots and lots of interesting textures, you know. Very metallic-y and, you know, glitchy sounding. Very FM in a lot of ways. This sound is the cutting bass. This one is using operator with compression and some redux and limiting on and stuff. A real cutting kind of sound. Let's try some of the other presets. Try some of the other textures as well. Yeah, this one is basically chorus and stereo width and erosion. To just add a bit more texture so there's a bit more substance to the sound. It can be really subtle or really extreme. Very metallic-y kind of things you can get with it again, you know. Let's take a look at one of the hooks. This one utilizes analog, and it has another redux in there, some chorus and saturation and stuff. Good selection of presets to play with. The effect is basically 3 delays going into each other, 2 really short and then 1 longer, you know. Some interesting things there. Okay, next up we've got a layer, which is playing the same part. This one is analog again. Quite a different variation of sounds on this one compared to the previous one, and this one just has an echo and a reverb on. Then we have these Tech Pluck synth, which is this guy. Try another preset. This one is using an arpeggiator with a Jupiter 6 sync sample from our Jupiter synth. Some cool variations on this one too. Let's try some other presets in the effects. This one is a delay into an echo with a reverb before the delay. Yeah, you can get some darker, deeper kind of sounding stuff. You know, any of these can be used with any other instruments as well. You can drag them around and try them on different sounds. Okay, and next up we have Moving Life Strings, which is a double of that same riff again, which is a technique we use a lot in production. This is an arpeggiator into analog again. And this has a chorus, echo, and a reverb. Next up, we have Melding Acid. This is using Ableton's Meld synth, which is one of the newer ones, and it also uses Raw, which is their multi-band distortion, saturation, overdrive, which is a really, really crazy effect. So let's take a listen. So this again is using an arpeggiator to give us double notes. Let's try some presets. Yeah, this is a pretty edgy, kind of chunky sound. You know, there's quite a lot of really cool variations you've got in there to play around with. Next up, we've got the Peak Saw. Now, this was a sample of saws stacked on our Novation Peak synth, which we sampled over 5 or 6 octaves. And it's got a real presence to it, which is what we really liked, which is why we wanted to multi-sample it. So let me give you a taste of what this does. It's a really nice, thick, kind of chorusy, you know, pad. Let's try some presets. Using some strange envelopes with the filter and stuff to give it a lot more movement, so it pulses and stuff. A little bit of a different approach with this kind of sound, but you know, you get some interesting stuff with it. Next up, we have our 36dB Acid Haus 3x3, which is from our Elements series. This was out a couple of years ago and is a really great synth. You get all of the presets and patterns that would have been with the original if you bought the original, and if you haven't, then this is a great chance to get it within one of our environments. So this is a really good synth with tons of presets, tons of really good patterns as well, so something really worth messing with. As you can see, you've got modulation going on here, which was recorded into the clip itself, into the pattern. Let's try some presets. You know, and it goes even beyond what an original 303 is, because we added a second oscillator. And then of course you've got the box of dirt, which is a load of different kind of texture ideas that you can add for different kind of distortion or dirt. There's some really cool sounds in there. And then you've got a few repeats, which just gives it some variations on the sounds. Yeah, it's basically reverb and echo being messed around to give it some variation and some texture. But a really good selection of effects racks and, you know, synths that you can get tons of variation out of. Lastly, we have a bunch of effects and stuff that we used in the track, which we usually add. So here's a couple of examples. It's all variations of LFO sounds that we create with our Euro rig. But they're great effects to add textures and stuff to, you know. And on this particular one, we've got this going into this third one of our returns, which has some really, really weird kind of pitching stuff going on. So if I solo that, and you can hear that. Yeah, some really crazy stuff. Yeah, we do love a good bit of modulation in here. You know, you've got auto filter, you've got a delay, you've got the new shifter effect in Ableton being used. So you get a lot of crazy pitching kind of stuff going on. We've also got an updated version of our shimmer verb, which I mentioned earlier. You know, this one now has an EQ. So you can kind of, you know, change around the shape of stuff, you know, to basically sculpt the reverb a little bit more to make it sit within the mix a little bit better. And all of these presets were basically upgraded to feature what you can do with the filter section, which wasn't in the original. You've then got a wonky reverb, which is another pitching kind of reverb, using pitch hack as well as echo, which has some really, really cool things in. So let's try some of that as well. So that's going to be this guy. Some really interesting stuff in here that just moves around and gets really, really twisted and stuff. And then we've got pedal filter, which is an interesting combination of stuff. This is using the updated Ableton filter, the beat repeater, and also dub echo, which is kind of cool as well. So this is number 3. Let's take a look at that guy. As you can see, it's kind of a lot more movement within the effect than just a standard delay. So you get all these extra kind of textures that are going on that just really make things stand out a little bit and just be a little different than what you'd normally do. I mean, you can be as extreme or as subtle as you want, but there's so many really good presets in this one to get you started, and then, you know, dial them in and fine tune them, you know. And don't forget, you've always got your random function as well, which will give you some crazy variations, but usually you've got to dial it back down again to get it to fit and work within the track. And then lastly, we have the vocal, which does a really cool thing in the middle here. We've basically added a grain sample, which pitches. So if you listen to what it does, it's kind of a little bit like the old time stretch on the old Akai samplers back in the day, but, you know, interesting little texture that you can use. And of course, you can drop your own sample in there and do your own thing. You know, you don't have to use what we've already got in there, but it's a cool little feature. And then, of course, we've got our mastering channel on the output, our drums, again, as tracks and also as patterns. And we have our drum rack for this one with presets dialed in for this particular mix. So you've got a couple of variations of how you want it to sound. So you get quite a few different flavors of the drums, you know, whether you want it a bit more forward or you want it a bit more subtle or a bit more edgy and punchy, then, you know, each of these presets will give you a slightly different flavor to what you want with the drums within your track. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to tune in next time here at 36db.